It indicated that the toilet training phase of Hitler's childhood might have gone wrong.
Now, you can't say that.
All right, all right. Well, how about this? From what we know about his mother's excessive cleanliness and tidiness, we may assume she employed rather stringent measures during the toilet training period of the children. We know this usually results in a residual tension in this area. It's regarded by the child as a severe frustration that arouses feelings of hostility. Now, this facilitates an alliance with his infantile aggression that finds an avenue for expression through anal activities and fantasies. These usually center around soiling, humiliation, and destruction, and form the basis of a sadistic character.
Aber dass die Partei weiterleben wird, das weiß ich, und dass über alle Personen, über Schwache und Starke hinweg die Zukunft der deutschen Nation erfolgreich gestalten wird, das glaube ich und das weiß ich.
Lange felt that he had a potential fit for Freud's Oedipus complex and extreme difficulties with the toilet training stage of childhood. And he suspected that this would be most clearly seen in Hitler's attitudes to sex. Sex, for Freud, was crucial to what drove and determined people. And in Freudian analysis, an anally retentive personality might well appear apparently disinterested in sex or asexual. According to the man who ran the Berghof, Hitler's stunning Alpine retreat, Hitler and his lover, Eva Braun, were never physically intimate.
My wife was always very curious, as was I, and she often did Hitler's washing. And the first thing she always did was to check if there had been any sexual activity. But there was never any evidence. My wife checked the sheets and there were no signs of sexual activity, none. And if we had private conversations with the chambermaids, they said the same. No traces could ever be found.
Lange didn't know this at the time, but he did know that Hitler was awkward around women and appeared to be asexual. This reinforced his belief that the Fuhrer had something to hide.
I think it's important to think of individuals in layers. There's the layer we see on the surface, which for many is all that is seen and understood. And for many leaders, that layer is there to overcompensate for what is missing beneath. For Hitler, the magnitude of his weakness psychologically led to a drive psychologically to overcome that, and he developed this compensatory messianic self. But again, that's a surface picture on top of this empty self beneath, this wounded self from that rather childhood.
But Lange didn't believe that Hitler could keep this weak, empty side of his personality permanently hidden. Following his version of Freud, he knew where to look. He suspected that it would express itself sexually. He was most interested in Hitler's relationship with his niece, speculation in the Hitler literature that he was more than just an uncle to the teenager. He couldn't talk to Gili because she had committed suicide in 1930, apparently following a row with Hitler. But Otto Strasser was close to Hitler and Gili during this period. He was one of the founding members of the Nazi Party, along with his brother Gregor, seen here alongside Hitler at a party rally in 1927. But they both fell out with the Fuhrer over the political direction of the party. Hitler later had Gregor murdered, and Otto escaped to Canada.
You knew Gili Raubel?
Yes, I knew her very well. I took her out a few times.
And how did her uncle Adolf react?
He got very jealous when he found out. He finally forbade me from having any further contact with Geli.
Did you see her again?
Yes. One morning she appeared at my apartment in Munich, very upset. I let her in and tried to quieten her down. But all I could get out of her was that she didn't know what to do with her uncle.
What did she mean?
Well, she said that Hitler was very generous with her in some respects, and very harsh with her in others. And he frequently locked her up for long periods of time because she refused to do what he told her.
And what did you say?
I said to her, why don't you just sleep with him? What difference does it make if he's your uncle?
What did she say?
She said she'd be glad to sleep with him if that was all he wanted. But that she couldn't go through another performance again. I asked her what she meant. But she wouldn't tell me. I kept on asking, and finally she gave in.
What was the nature of this performance?
Well, she said that Hitler made her undress while he lay on the floor. Then she would have to squat down over his face while he examined her at close range. And this made him very excited. When his excitement reached its peak, he demanded that she urinate on him. And that gave him his sexual pleasure. Geli said that she found the whole performance extremely disgusting. And although it was sexually stimulating for Hitler, it gave her no gratification whatsoever.
The Strasser evidence is hard to judge. There's no doubt that there was no love lost between Otto Strasser and Hitler. He is not, in that sense, an impartial witness. And the other problem, of course, is that we need a great deal more evidence, which is going to be very hard to get, to be certain that the thing he's saying is not just one of those titillating rumours which people spread about Hitler and all the stuff about Hitler's homosexuality and so on, his sexual perversions. This was a kind of libel, if you like, which was more widespread in the 1930s, perhaps, than we might realise.
What's interesting about Strasser's material is it served to confirm analytic hunches that Langer had. It made sense psychologically. In the act of being subject in his perversion to being really sexually humiliated by a woman, that represented the unmasked wish to surrender, capitulate, be seen as a weak man against which he was forcefully quarreling psychologically and in his power, the power of the will. This was central for him. This was the highly potent, powerful leader. But underneath that was this man who was desperately weak and desperately afraid, and afraid of and yet seeking submission and capitulation.
Langer believed that Hitler found a way to deal with the terrible psychological consequences of his perversion by adapting a political ideology which was a prevalent and powerful part of mainstream European culture: anti-Semitism.